Hi, I'm Lucian, the designer for Eden Left Behind, a narrative mech exploration TTRPG. There's something I've been thinking about for a while, but wasn't quite sure how to articulate it until now. It's about the way that different role playing games involve player emotion and immersion, how they link the connection between character and player. Some games do it with rules, some do it with the lack of rules. It's a matter of taste, but can change a game's style and feel a lot more than you'd think. For example, Masks: A New Generation has these conditions that player characters take instead of being hurt. So in Masks, if, say, the Green Goblin successfully hurt Spider Man, rather than getting a wound, Spider Man would become angry, guilty, or afraid. To clear these conditions, Spider Man's player would need to do something in the fiction that relieves the condition. If he's mad, for example, he could yell at someone he cares about or break something important, creating an emergent story from play. The condition system is pretty unique and fitting for a teenage superhero game where you don't really want to narrate breaking a 15-year-old's leg or anything. It does create a very straightforward way of telling everyone at the table exactly how a character is feeling and how it's affecting their behavior. The way that the player needs to narrate their character doing something to remove the condition is also really clever. I do think, however, that it doesn't quite translate directly to player feeling. You see, when you take damage in Masks, the player gets to choose which condition is taken, so the choice creates separation from character to player emotion, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, just a matter of preference. A system like this tells everyone how your character is feeling, can create cool moments of roleplay, and in an environment where everyone knows you're acting this out from a mechanical point of view, so no feelings are actually affected in real life. Now let's take a look at what the opposite would be. Basically, take any game that doesn't have a mood mechanic like Masks does, and you've got the opposite. When a player wants their character to feel a certain way, they just narrate or act out their character behaving that way. If they want to be mad, they show they're mad. If they want to be afraid, they show they're afraid. The upside of this is that character emotion can be more connected to the player. The player might actually start to feel that emotion because of the things happening with their character. The downside is that this carryover can feel a bit tense or just weird for some people. The lack of separation means that if someone does something in the narrative that your character doesn't agree with, the roleplay conversation might start to feel like you, the player, are at odds with another player, rather than a character to a character. Because, well, another player did choose for their character to do whatever it was that started this conversation in the first place. So the highs are higher, but the lows are, well, more awkward and challenging to navigate. I think it's one of the reasons that many people choose to play someone that is almost just themselves when role-playing. When you have a lack of mechanical separation from player to character, it means that making choices your character would make, but you might not, has this weird reflection. Other people at the table might think that you actually made that choice. So some players just create themselves to avoid any of that strange roleplay miscommunication. These points aren't a criticism to either style. It's merely an observation for how different games go about navigating the emotional aspect of a story. So we've got games that give separation of character and player emotion through mechanics, like the Masks Conditions, Wild Seas Myers, or Delta Green's Mental Health. And games that don't give mechanical separation of character and player emotion, like Symbaroom, Cyberpunk Red, or even D&D. As you may have noticed, the example games I gave that do give that mechanical separation tend to do so openly with written conditions and choices, and the games that don't give the separation have next to nothing that indicates character mood. Cyberpunk has empathy and cyberpsychosis, but that's not really much more than a long-term health pool, giving a sense of inevitability to character death. So what if we made something that could fill both styles? A system that informs the players how to act, but does so subtly, where it shows up in the fiction without much effort from rules. I say what if, but I've actually already done it, so let me show you. There's several mechanics in Eden that sort of guide player choice and emotion to fit a similar way the character is feeling, without making it tough or completely obvious. They are stability, personal life, and memories. I'll go through each one by one. Stability is a simple resource in Eden. It's not sanity or a stress meter like how many other games have. It's something more like well-being. When you don't like the result of a roll, you can lose one stability to reroll all dice that don't show a 1. You can do this as many times as you like, stopping when you choose or when no more dice are available to reroll. The meter itself has a smiley face on one end and a frowny face on the other. When you reach one of these faces, you get a bonus or penalty for being outside of your mech, depending on if it's the smiley or frowny face. This kind of subtlety creates a system where the most stable pilots will be the ones who interact with the real world more. They'll be the ones that talk to NPCs, the ones who repair other mechs, and apply medical aid to friends. That sweet, sweet bonus die makes the stable pilots behave how they would realistically in the story. And the same goes for unstable pilots. A cut on all pilot roles means that the unstable pilot is more likely to mess up when speaking to NPCs, less likely to leave the cramped cockpit of their mech, and will actually ask for help from teammates more often, creating this natural bond among the table. The little smiley and frowny faces are also a neat psychological trick that, beyond showing where the bonus and penalty is, gives a little extra reward for being stable. I've had players avoid going below the frowny face simply because they didn't want their stability to look sad. Personal life. The personal life system is where you'll be spending a lot of your vacation days as a pilot. Each pilot has 3 available situation slots when it comes to personal life. This is where friends, rivals, pets, consequences, and other non-mission ongoing activities are written. Pilots start their employment with just one situation, but as a campaign progresses, they'll gain more through choice or events outside of their control. Who the pilot is will be reflected by who they spend their time with, and what situations they've got themselves caught up in. A pilot who hangs out with a criminal at the mall is very different from one who has beef with a photographer because they keep posting bad pictures of him. Personal life becomes a key ingredient to seeing who your pilot really is. The story that takes place during vacation days are simple to start, but will begin to evolve as more details are added, similar to how a background character in an anime might become more important later down the line. Both player and character will grow attached in one way or another to the people in their personal lives, which gives the GM the perfect opportunity to do something with that. Maybe someone goes missing, betrays you, or asks for a favor. The personal life system is basically the players going, I find this person interesting. I want them incorporated into the story more. This means player input without control. A nice middle ground between shaping a character's story and simply playing a character in a world. Memories. When a pilot dies, they choose and narrate a memory from a predetermined list. Things like describing the last birthday you had on Earth, a memory only you and one other person experienced, or giving a detailed description of your childhood bedroom. You can't be reborn until the memory is narrated, making it a part of mechanics, not just for flavor. Memories do a few things for the player and the story. Firstly, backstories are heavily discouraged in Eden. When you make a pilot, the most backstory you need to give them is their purpose. You don't come up with how they grew up, what happened in their life, or what made them into the person they are today. That's left for during play. Eden is meant to be imagined and narrated in the style of an anime or manga, everyone at the table being the viewers. That means that the history of even your own character should be secret to everybody, including you. Both backstory and plot slowly forms throughout play, the missions being a backdrop for character change. As you narrate more and more memories, you'll start to put the pieces together of why your character is like this and how their life has changed them. The second thing memories do is incorporate deep emotions into play without feeling forced or fake. The very nature of the timing of the memories and the things they ask you to narrate means that there is no possible way of making it feel like a player did it wrong. I'll give you an example of a memory that one of my players had. Michael had 1 flesh. He rolled a failure on his medical check, causing a loss of 1 flesh, killing him. Michael's player chose, describe your childhood bedroom as the memory. He was actually quite excited while describing it. He had a smile on his face. He was getting into little details, like how the bed frame itself was mech-shaped. Everybody was laughing. But when the memory was over and Michael was reborn, he walked to his room. Michael's player let out a, oh, when he realized that the bedroom was not the one he described. This is what I mean when I'm talking about character to player connection. In that moment, even though Michael was a one-shot character that the player made an hour before this, when he opened that door to his blank room, the player and the character felt the same thing. They were both disappointed. They were both sad. That room that they had just imagined so vividly was gone. And it even goes a bit further. Because each memory can only be narrated one time per character, Michael will never get to see that room again. His player will never get to narrate it to everyone. This connection of character and player emotion is key to creating both immersive and unpredictable stories, rather than the complete freedom that many narrative games have, being able to control many things outside of your character's influence, or the restraint of only being able to act as your character in the world. Eden takes a different approach. The game moves from strict character-only control to world-type control, but in a way that tosses the idea back to the GM. It's more like a tennis match of narration control. The player can serve the GM a ball, and then play back and forth through character interaction. The idea is that players can essentially prompt the GM during certain moments of play, rather than the GM prompting the players. This guarantees connected stories, and it avoids railroading from the GM. So the players set the tone, and then they themselves embody a character that lives in that tone. meaning nobody is caught off guard for how they need to behave, and everyone has a good time playing their character. I'm probably biased, but I haven't encountered any TTRPGs that really do this approach when it comes to player emotion. If anyone has recommendations, I'd love to hear it. This is just my opinion on the subject, of course, so let me know in the comments what you think. I try to respond to everything. I post here weekly about storytelling, game design, and Eden Left Behind. So if you're into that sort of thing, subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.